Hooray! Hey, fiber friends, welcome to the For Knit Six channel. My name is Allison, and I am coming to you from El Paso, Texas, where I live with my husband and my two sons and our fur baby, Lucy. I have been thrown for a little bit of a curveball today because today is my birthday. I am turning 33. Hooray. And I wasn't expecting my husband to be home, but he came home after physical training today, and now he's at the house. So I feel a little bit awkward whenever he's at the house and I'm trying to podcast. And on top of that, I'm doing it live, which makes it even more weird because I can't edit anything out. So whatever I say, it's going in. So we'll try really hard to not make this weird today, but I mean, I can't make any promises. I am sitting slightly off center. The lighting is getting weird because the sun's coming up a little bit sooner in the day. So sorry if the lighting's off. Hopefully the sound is okay. Excuse me about all the sniffling. I have a little bit of allergies going on, but we're going to get through today. I promise. It's my birthday. I do what I want. So, and you only live once, right? Okay, if you want to find me on social media, you can find me under For Knit Sakes on Instagram and Ravelry. And we also have a podcast group on Ravelry that you can find all the show notes for, as well as for these live podcasts. I'm putting all the show notes in the description box below. Now, since I am leaving as soon as I'm done podcasting, it might take me a little bit to get those show notes up in the description box and on the Ravelry page, but I will try my best to get it done by the end of the day. So we do have a knit along going on, and you can find that information in the Ravelry group. Again, I will put the link in the description box below. And it is a stash bust knit along where all year round, as long as you have this yarn in your stash before January 1st of 2019, you can knit anything that you want or crochet anything. It's more of a make along. I think the only stipulation is the yarn has to be in your stash before January 1st. And I think maybe the finished object needs to be at least 50 grams. I'm pretty sure. And if you want to use the hashtag, I'll put that in the description box below too. It's hashtag 4KS stash bust KAL 2019. Quite a mouthful, isn't it? So join in. I haven't checked the thread in a while, but I know we have we have a decent amount of finished objects already. And there's also a chatter thread if anybody wants to discuss what they're doing with their stashes, how they're planning their queues. I know I keep adding more things and trying to get a lot of knitting done. So join in. I'm going to try to pick winners about every 3 months. It will probably just be patterns that I can gift to you guys under a certain dollar amount. And maybe if I have a big prize by the end of the year, I can send it from Alaska. So if you haven't watched before, we are currently in El Paso, but we are scheduled to move to Anchorage, Alaska in June of this year. We're still waiting on the final word on whether we can go or not. There's this process that you have to go to when you go overseas with the military that if anybody needs special needs, like our son needs a pediatric gastroenterologist, they need to be able to have those services for him. And because, being truthful here, I take anxiety medication and I've seen behavioral health for PTSD reasons because my son was hospitalized about 3 years ago. Now I have to be enrolled because I might need those services while we are stationed, overseas, even though it's still connected to the United States. It's considered overseas for the military. So we're still waiting on the final word. We're hopefully here by the end of March and it shouldn't be any issues. It's just I have to get some paperwork filled out and blah, blah, blah. But you are not here to listen about our moving trials and tribulations. You are here for knitting. I am skipping the writing prompt for today just because I am a little short on time and I do have a decent amount of stuff to show to you guys. So I'm going to hop right into finished objects for today. And I have 4 finished objects, 2 pairs of socks. So the first one I'm going to show are I have everything out of order now, my DK weight boot socks. And I got this idea from Susan, who is KnitLib on Ravelry and Instagram, and she also has a podcast. She was taking 2 strands of fingering weight yarn and knitting socks out of them. When you put 2 strands of fingering weight yarn, it's usually about a DK weight. And so what I did, I like knitting toe up socks because then I can try on the toe and figure out how many stitches I need to knit a sock that's going to fit my foot properly. You make sure that they fit over the first 4 toes, not your whole entire foot. And if you do over the first 4 toes, you'll get that negative ease to have a nice tight fitting sock. So if you are kind of having trouble with sock fit issues, I would suggest trying toe up socks and increasing your toe until they fit just over your first 4 toes, and then you'll have a nice snug fitting sock. Now, I feel like I have something inside my sleeve that's cold, but I don't know what it is. So these are my DK weight boot socks. These are 2 yarns. One is a yarn from a European store called Kik, K-I-K. And I had gotten 3 skeins of this like coral colored yarn. And then the multicolored like gradient yarn is a Tofutzi's yarn. I talked about it last time. It's this really strange yarn. It's wool, cotton, cheatham, which is like a crab or shrimp. Sort of, I don't know. It's a very tiny percentage of the actual fiber. But when you put them together, it creates this really cool marled effect. And so I did 40 stitches on a US 2.5, and I did a fleagle heel so I wouldn't have to worry about picking up stitches for an afterthought. And because I like my socks so snug, my cuffs tend to be really tight. But I was talking to a friend at my knitting guild meeting this last time, and she uses a yarn over technique when she does her bind offs on her toe up socks. And I will link the Very Pink Knits tutorial down below, where basically you're adding in an extra yarn over in between your bind offs. So it makes it really super stretchy, because when I first bound off and I was just doing knit 2 together through the back loop all the way around, I could barely get it over my heel. And then when I put it on, it felt like it was like cutting off the circulation in my leg. So after I talked to my friend, I ripped out the bind off and I redid the whole bind off. And now I have happy feet and my legs don't feel like they're losing circulation. So I'm definitely going to be making more DK weight boot socks, as Susan likes to call them. And I actually have my yarn picked out for my next set. And I have the needles and everything just hanging out in my bag, ready to go. And I'm going to be making the 2 yarns I'm using. I actually had a sock blank and I pulled it out so it would be easier for transport. This is from the Creative Obsession. She's no longer dying, unfortunately. Hi, Carrie. But this is going to be a really cool sock, because the front part of the sock blank had like these purples and greens, and then it turns into this pink and then yellows. I'm really interested to see how it's going to knit up. And I had a whole skein left over of this Hawthorn from Knit Picks in the Goddess colorway. It's actually the same colorway that's here in my Zweig sweater by Caitlin Hunter. So I'm going to pair these 2 together to make some DK weight boot socks. Now, the nice thing is about these boot socks is I barely use like 50 grams in each sock. So between the 2 skeins of yarn, I used 100 grams, but only 50 grams of each color. So, and you see they're pretty tall. They go, I have to fix this hole right here. I always get that whenever I do fleagle heels. I haven't quite figured it out how to get rid of those holes. But they go almost to where like my calf starts. So they're pretty tall socks. And I like that I can only use 50 grams of 2 different colors to make a pair of socks. So I still have enough left over. I might make some socks for my nieces in the 2 different colorways, just kind of like swap out whatever I use for the toes and the cuffs. And then I'll have enough to make them like coordinating socks, which would be really cute. So those are done. And then my next set of socks I finished are my Martian rainbow socks, which are from Mustache Yarns. They were the perfect matching skeins. I had a viewer, Connie. Thank you so much, Connie, if you're watching. She sent me a wonderful package. I still think about that frequently, how nice and generous people are. So I have finished my Martian rainbow socks. And for the heels, toes, and cuffs, I used a Knit Pick Stroll Bright. I think it's like Vibrant Violet or something similar to that. But I really like how fun they are, and like how the purples kind of match up to where the heels are on the sock. And they just make me really happy. And this yarn is so, so soft. And now I washed these socks yesterday, and I think my bind offs or my weaving ends, my ends came out. Huh. I might have to fix that. I did all my sock washing yesterday, so because I washed all of my socks are machine washable, so everything goes in the washer on a gentle cycle with a low spin, and then I put it on low in the dryer. Makes my socks nice and fluffy and tightens up all the stitches and everything. But that worries me a little bit. I guess I didn't weave in my ends well enough. Ruh-roh. But just plain vanilla socks, 64 stitches on a US 0 2mm needle. And you can tell which sock I did magic loop and which one I did 9-inch circulars. If you look at the bottoms, you can see this one I have a little bit of a ladder. This side I don't. My gauge is pretty much the same for both. My row gauge is a little bit different. I keep getting stabbed by a needle. That's what I keep feeling. My row gauge is a little bit different when I use magic loop versus 9-inch circulars. So I think I had to knit a couple extra rows for the magic loop versus the 9-inch. You can totally see the difference. You can tell this one was done magic loop and this one was done 9-inch circular because there's no line. Ha! Interesting. Cool things that you notice when you start showing things off. But oh my goodness, just aren't they so much fun? They're going to be great to wear when it's super cold in Alaska and I haven't seen the sun in a while. Granted, they get the sun a little bit. It's like 5 hours max in one day. So we'll see. Okay, so those are all the socks. The next thing I finished was my Ludlow scarf wrap by Julie Hoover. It is a paid pattern on Ravelry. It is a textured pattern the textured pattern is written in chart form and written out. This thing is huge. It is so super long. When I put it on, this is folded 4 times. So it's folded in half and folded in half again. So you can see there's a bunch of really cool textures, some moss stitch, and the diamonds and the other small strips are supposed to be arrows. It's a little hard to see. I did knit this in Indicita DK. The pattern calls to use 2 strands of fingering weight yarn, but I decided to use this DK weight yarn. Helene from the Knitting Guild gifted me like 10 50-gram balls of this, and I think I used 6 to make this, but it is very, very long. A lot of knitting. I kind of wish it was a little bit wider. It's a little bit more scarf-like than I was hoping for. I was kind of hoping for width. So, but it's still a really nice scarf. I do have to wrap it twice on both sides in order for it to be like a wearable length. When I put the middle across my neck, the ends touch my toes. So, but it didn't actually take as long as I thought it would. The chart reading was a little bit confusing because, of course, like on the wrong side, your knits are pearls and pearls are, it switches when you're reading right side versus wrong side. But I got it done. I powered through and I finished it. So I'm wearing it to the bus stop since it's still 30 degrees in the morning when we go to the bus. And, today's high is supposed to be 60, so I'm probably going to have to take off my sweater, unfortunately. So that's Ludlow by Julie Hoover, knit in Indicita DK, which is a 100% alpaca. So it's got a little bit of like the prickliness and it's a little fuzzy. You can kind of see the halo just a little bit on top here. But it's nice and cozy and it's going to be very warm for Alaska. And then I have started and finished a sweater. But it is going to become another work in progress because I knit the Second Story Tee by Debbie O'Neill. I got it in the 100 Knits. It's an interweave publication. You can buy it on Ravelry. I think it's $6 or $6.50 US dollars. And it's supposed to be a short sleeve sweater, but I wore it the other day with long sleeves underneath and I felt it look kind of funny. It's a bottom up sweater. You're supposed to knit it in pieces and then seam them together, but I didn't rewrite the pattern. I just thought about the construction and I figured out how to knit it in the round. And I knit it very similar to the Weekender where you knit it in the round. And then when you get to the underarms, then you knit the front piece and then you knit the back piece. That made my life so much easier. The pattern, I keep this so I remember which side's the back because there's only a couple extra short rows, not really short rows, but you knit like this much for the left and the right shoulder before you 3 needle bind off the top. So it's basically like knitting 2 panels, 3 needle binding bind off, and then you could seam it together, but I figured out how to knit it in the round. So it is this diagonal textured panel where you just kind of keep adding more stockinette stitch, and it mirrors the same on the back. So you just kind of have to keep track of when you're shifting your purls over to the next row. So you're just doing ribs, but they're gradually decreasing the amount of ribbing as you go up. So now what I'm going to do though, I am ripping out the ribbing and I'm going to knit full length sleeves. I have about 150, 175 grams left because I had just gotten into a new ball of yarn to do the sleeves and the neckline. So I can only imagine I didn't even use half of that. So I have at least 175 grams left of this Wool of the Andes worsted. This is not the superwash version. And it's in the opal heather colorway. Now the original pattern is supposed to be in sport weight. Now Wool of the Andes is more of like a light worsted DK. So I did adjust my needle size. I used a US size 7. And I think I cast on 204 stitches instead of the 210. And I still have a decent amount of positive ease. And I also decreased in the waist a little bit up until the bust. So that's the one thing I don't really quite like about the sweater. It's a little more A-line than I was expecting, but it's going to be a nice and comfy sweater as soon as I get the long sleeves done. But I at least got to wear it once in El Paso because it's supposed to start getting into the 70s next week. And we already hear birds. Birds are already coming back for the spring. And I won't be able to wear sweaters much longer. So second story tee, I'm going to make it long sleeve. And then it'll be done again. So I'll show it next time when I actually have sleeves done. But I kind of don't want to rip it out at the moment just because I finished it and I wore it. It's finished. But now it's not to be, it's going to be unfinished again. So I do like this Wool of the Andes worsted. This is the first time I've made a full garment out of it. I have used it in half of a cardigan before. It is a little fuzzy. I'm worried about pilling a little bit, but I'm just going to kind of see how it wears. I like the more rustic yarns because I feel like they hold up a little bit better. I just wish there was like a tighter spin to it so maybe it wouldn't pill so much. But it's going to be a nice warm sweater regardless. So I'm glad I'm done with it. It was actually a fairly quick knit because I was just knitting around and around and around. Mostly vanilla with a little bit of thinking with the ribbing. So it worked. Not fully caffeinated quite yet. So those are all the finished objects, and I have 2 works in progress and 1 new queued item that I'm trying to figure out what yarn I want to use to knit it. So, oh wait, I have 3 works in progress, and 1 I will show really quickly. They're my mother-in-law's socks. I did finish half. I don't know if I showed this last time. Still have to put a heel in. And then I have about 20 more rows left on this sock before I do the cuff. Now I did 60 stitches on a US 0. These are Hiya sharps. And then when I got to row 90, this is where I'm going to put my heel in. When I got to row 90, I increased on the outside. So these outside panels have 1 extra stitch on both the front and the back of the sock to make a little bit more room for calves. And I might take out the cuff on this one and do the yarn over because it feels a little tight. Like this stretches a lot here, but this up here isn't giving at all. So I think I want to redo that. This is just Patton's Croy in the something Singing the Blues colorway. I've already knit socks out of this before, so it's nothing new for me, but I like Patton's Croy. It's very workhorse yarn that you can buy at Michael's, Joann, etc. Crafty, which is now Blueprint, I guess, which I've done before. Sometimes they have sales on Patton's. I'm a big fan of Patton's if you can't tell. Now, I've had this Island Yarn gradient kit for 2 years. And now this is the Rivulet. It's sport weight, 100% superwash merino, 300 yards total. You get 4 mini skeins in this gradient color. These are the 2 that I haven't used yet. And this is in the blood orange colorway. And I have cast on, it's called the the-Queens-Spiral-Cowl by Stephanie Schiemann. Again, everything will be in the description box below. It is a free pattern. I did not fade from one gradient to another, and I'm wondering if I should have. Now that I'm seeing it on camera, you can totally see that line right there. It's not as noticeable in person, but I also thought if it's going to be bunched up on my neck, nobody's really going to be this close looking at my neck, wondering like, hey, there's a line there. You should have like faded it in. I don't think I'm going to care that much, but the original pattern was written for fingering weight with 185 stitches cast on. Free pattern on Ravelry if you want to do something more than just like a sockhead cowl. It's just a really simple lace pattern. So you knit one row and then you do the lace pattern on the next row. Super easy, one yarn over one, like some knit two togethers. Really easy to keep track of. So I think I cast on maybe 155 stitches on a US 6. Yes, a 4mm needle. And it's going to be a little big. It's not going to be a super tight fitting cowl, but it's also not going to be a very long one because I obviously don't have a whole lot of yarn, because all I have left is this ball here and then these two to finish it. So it's not going to be a super long one, but enough to kind of bunch up around my neck to wear underneath the coat. So this is the Queen's Spiral Cowl. Free pattern on Ravelry. One problem of doing it live, I sound like an idiot sometimes. So that's what the cowl's supposed to look like. Free pattern, so I can show all this stuff. But she also used a gradient yarn, and the cowl's a little bit bigger than what mine will probably end up being. So this is going to be my on-the-go knitting as soon as I'm done with those socks. And that is in my homemade cat bag. I had some leftover fabric from a bag that I made for a friend. And so I added a little bit of gray at the bottom to make it a little bit taller. Little drawstring bag. Cute cats with little flowers on their heads. So it's a nice, I could probably fit a small shawl in here, a cowl, definitely a pair of socks, but nothing much bigger than that. So, and my last work in progress is something I cast on just a couple days ago. And I already made a mistake and I had to rip it out all the way back to the beginning and restart it over again. So I am knitting the Whistler by Veronica Job. It's like a tunic length, almost a dress with split hem on the bottom. And it's got this all over broken rib texture here. So you knit back and forth and then you join in the round to create this like V-neck shape up here at the neck. And that's where I messed up. I was like halfway through the backs and forths before I was going to join in the round. And then I messed up the rib. I had switched something. I don't know, messed it up. So I am knitting this out of Patton's Wool Worsted. Craftsy Blueprint was having a sale. And I got the colorway Aran Tweed. So it's this kind of cream color with blue, brown, light blue, dark blue, and brown tweed flecks in it. I already knew my gauge because I've already knit a sweater out of this before. And so work smarter, not harder. I did not do a gauge swatch. And I have a little bit of a sweater right now. So this broken rib pattern is on the front, the back, and the sleeves. And they are separated by these raglan panels on all four sides, which I think is really cool. And I think the raglan panels stay in the body of the sweater. And I'm just kind of seeing the sides as I go along. I kind of took gauge a little bit after I joined in the round, but it's still kind of unsure how much oversized it's going to be. It's hard when these patterns jump from 39-inch bust to 43-inch bust, because I am right like that 39, 40-inch. I don't want something super tight, but I also don't want something that looks like a sack on me. And so I kind of have to make those adjustments. And this one I can, decrease a little bit in the waist and increase again for the hips as I go, which is, the beauty of top-down sweaters is you can make those adjustments as you go. And I like how squishy the fabric is. And even the wrong side looks really pretty too. So I can spit splice all this yarn together. And if I weave my ends in on the underarms well enough, then I could definitely wear this inside out. Wouldn't that be kind of cool? 2 garments in one. So I'm just kind of working on this. Obviously, I haven't split for the sleeves yet, but after that, then I am on my way. Just so squishy. Look at that. So cool. And I like Patton's worsted. It is not a superwash yarn, so it definitely can felt, but I like that I can buy it relatively easily at Joann or Michael's, because we have some little yarn shops, but they have like almost all discontinued yarn. So I think it's yarn that they're just trying to get rid of. And, you know, they don't have a really good stock of like sweater quantities. I like this, that I can just buy it. And then Michael's is almost always having some sort of sale, either 40% off. You know, you always get that one coupon for 40% off one item, or sometimes they have buy two, get one free for yarn. So I usually wait for sales like that to get this kind of yarn, and they're just so nice and warm and cozy, and the rustic wool doesn't bother me as much as it used to. So I always wear, you know, tank tops underneath everything anyways. So nothing really touches a large amount of skin, and then it's comfortable that way. So now the last thing I have added to my queue, and I'm going to find it on my phone really quick, is it's like a cocoon shrug. It's the Augusta by Kefren Pritchett. I'm going to find it on my Ravelry really quick. Now I can't decide what yarn I want to make it out of. I have been looking at the Simply Wool worsted on Knit Picks, because I have my friend Lauren, who's Wool Pickle. I've talked about her a lot. She says she really likes it. I want a yarn that's not going to pill, or I also want something that's going to show good stitch definition, because there's this cool cabled panel in the back. And then see if I can get a picture of the front. Maybe there. So it has this really wide, not really a button band because there's no buttons on it, but this was also in that interweave book that I got the second story tee pattern out of. And there's not a whole lot of projects on the page. 113 people have projects on Ravelry for it. And some people have knit it with the Simply Wool. And I think I'm going to message them and see how the pilling is. But I've looked at the reviews on the Knit Picks website, and a lot of people say it washes really well. Not a whole lot of pilling, really good stitch definition. So all the things I'm kind of looking for. Plus it's priced well. It's only $6.99 for a 100 gram skein, and I need 8 skeins with the yardage for this, because cables are going to eat yarn basically. And so, because I feel that the wool of the Andes is going to pill a lot. Swish is a little bit too soft. It's also a pill, and then a pilly kind of yarn. And because it's superwash, I haven't knit a whole lot with it, so I would be worried that it would be too big. Because the Cocoon Shrug, it's going to be big anyways. And I don't want it to be so overly huge that it just looks kind of funny on me. But I have my Whistler sweater to do, and then 2 other sweaters to knit before I consider doing that cardigan. But with the way I'm going, I might have it all done before we move. You never know. Okay, so that is all that I'm working on, all that I have planned on working on. And now, if you want to hang around for some life stuff, you're more than welcome to. We've been fairly boring people as usual. I was going to podcast on Tuesday, but I needed to drop something off to the husbeast at work that something got lost underneath his nightstand, and I had to find it. So I took it to his work. And then I was going to podcast yesterday, but leave it to a 7-year-old to scratch his eyeball taking off a t-shirt. I don't even know how it happened, but he was being silly, and he had a long sleeve t-shirt on, and he just kind of like whipped it off. And I think he smacked himself in the face, and he woke up like this and said his eye hurt. So I took him to the doctor just to have him look at it. They didn't have the dye where they could actually see if he scratched it, but because of what he was saying and the way he looked, they just told me to keep him home for a day, keep his eye rested, no screens, no reading, nothing that would strain his eyes. So we stayed home yesterday, which was, fun. We got a donut on the way home, which he was very excited about because we don't get to eat real donuts, because if you haven't watched before, my youngest son has celiac disease. And so we can't have gluten, wheat, barley, rye, oats unless it's certified gluten-free. So we don't get to go to like Krispy Kreme as a family for stuff like that. So we picked up some donuts on the way home because he wasn't going to be able to watch any TV or anything. So the least I could do was buy him a donut. So he enjoyed that. And we're just still prepping to move. Hopefully, everything with Alaska will still pan out. Things can always change at the last minute with the military anyways, which is super stressful. But you just kind of take it as it comes. Until I have paperwork in my hands, that's when I get, oh, hey, my dad just sent me a happy birthday to me. Okay, sorry. And so we went ahead and bit the bullet and we bought a new car, which is something, even if we don't end up going to Alaska, the car is amazing. Got a really great price on it. It's going to be a great traveling car because we got the crossbars to get a car top carrier so we can fit all of us and the dog in the car. I just bit my tongue. It's always an adventure on the podcast, isn't it? And I'm pretty sure we've decided we're going to shoot up the West Coast. So hopefully I can meet Janine and Carrie in person, which I would really hope so. And maybe even the Naughty Nitwits. That would be really cool. Because I haven't been on the West Coast. This is the farthest west I've been in the United States my whole entire life. So that's kind of the cool thing about the military. Like we get to move every 3 years and experience new places. So who knows where we'll be in, 5 to 6 years from now. So other than that, I'm getting rid of things that we don't need and getting through life day to day, keeping my kids alive, feeding them. Today we are having some friends over, so I need to get some cleaning done and make the house presentable and make our bathroom not smell like a frat house, thanks to living with boys. If you have boys, then I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And that's pretty much it. Waiting to hear back about my license. I sent in all my licensure paperwork to renew my teaching license. I do have a degree in music education, and I'm hoping to find a job when we move to Alaska. If I can't find a full-time job, then maybe I can be like an assistant teacher in a preschool classroom or a kindergarten classroom, depending if the classes have aides or not. But I really want to get back to work. It's been 8 years. I miss the classroom. I miss the kids. And it's time for me to go back. And, that's also why I'm kind of choosing to knit my more complicated patterns, because I don't know if I will be able to keep up with obviously I can't keep up with the amount of time that I knit because I knit while the boys are in school. Excuse me. And I need sweaters to wear if it's going to be cold, right? So I got to get the things that require concentration, and then I'll probably do a lot more vanilla knitting if I end up getting a job. And also trying to plan knitting in the car, trying to keep myself busy, and hopefully I won't get car sick. It's been a while since I tried to knit on long car trips, so I don't know how that's going to go, but okay. Well, I think that is all for today. I love doing these lives because I don't talk as much as I usually do. I would like some people to join in, but I know, people work. It's during a weekday. I can't really podcast on the weekends because everybody's at home. But if you guys like these live podcasts, let me know, just because I think it's easier for me to do. And then it's just a matter of getting all the description box, all of the show notes and stuff done for you guys. But hopefully I can keep up with it. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the next couple weeks and have more to show. Don't forget to go into your stash and find some things to do and join the chatter and the finished object thread. And I want to see what you guys are working on. So I hopefully will see you guys sooner than 3 weeks. Life got in the way this last time, as usual. And keep on knitting, keep your needles moving, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.